When I got up to get a glass of water at 3 a.m., I found my daughter asleep at her desk, her cell phone still lit up beside her. I went to carry her to bed, just like I used to when she was little. But when I saw what was on the screen, my heart stopped. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The floorboards creaked beneath my feet as I made my way down the hallway at 3 in the morning. At 64, my bladder had become an unreliable timekeeper, waking me at odd hours with increasing frequency. I'd learned to navigate our old farmhouse in the dark, counting steps from my bedroom door to the bathroom. 12 forward, turn left, 3 more. But that night, something made me pause. A pale blue glow seeped from beneath Beatrice's door, the one at the end of the hall. My daughter had been staying with me for 3 weeks now, ever since her divorce from Kenneth became final. She'd said she needed time to think, to figure out her next steps. At 42, she'd told me, she felt like she was starting over from scratch. I understood that feeling more than she knew. The light from her room bothered me. Beatrice had always been an early sleeper, even as a child. I stood there in my nightgown, debating whether to check on her or respect her privacy. The mother in me won out. It always did. I knocked softly. No answer. "Beatrice?" I whispered, turning the handle slowly. "Honey, are you still awake?" The door opened to reveal my daughter slumped over her desk, her head resting on her crossed arms. Her phone lay beside her, screen still glowing with that unnatural blue light. She'd fallen asleep while looking at something, her reading glasses askew on her face. My heart softened at the sight. She looked so much like she had at 16, studying too late for exams, pushing herself too hard. I crossed the room quietly, intending to wake her gently and guide her to bed. As I reached for her shoulder, my eyes fell on the phone screen. And everything changed. The text message thread was still open. The contact name at the top read M. I knew immediately it was Kenneth, her ex-husband. But it was the messages themselves that made my blood run cold. M. Did you move it yet? Beatrice. Tomorrow. She'll never know. M. You're sure she hasn't found it? Beatrice. Mom doesn't even know what she's looking for. It's been hidden for 30 years. M. The property deed too? Beatrice. Everything. Once it's transferred, we split it 60-40 like we agreed. My hand trembled as I reached for the phone, but I stopped myself. If I woke her now, if I confronted her in this moment, she would know I'd seen these messages. And something told me I needed to understand the full scope of what was happening before I revealed what I knew. 30 years. What had been hidden for 30 years? I backed away slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. Beatrice didn't stir. I closed her door with infinite care and stood in the dark hallway, my need for the bathroom completely forgotten. My mind raced backward through the decades. 30 years ago, I was 34. My husband, James, was still alive. We'd been running this farm together, raising Beatrice and her younger brother, Tom. What could possibly have been hidden then that Beatrice and her ex-husband were conspiring about now? The property deed. They'd mentioned a property deed. I made my way back to my bedroom, but knew sleep wouldn't come. Instead, I sat on the edge of my bed, staring at the darkness beyond my window. The farm stretched out there, 200 acres of land that had been in James's family for 4 generations. He'd died 8 years ago, leaving everything to me. Or so I'd thought. As dawn began to paint the sky in shades of gray, a memory surfaced. Sharp and clear, like it had been waiting all these years to be remembered. James, in his study, late at night. Papers spread across his desk. He'd been agitated about something, muttering to himself. When I'd asked what was wrong, he'd kissed my forehead and said, "Just boring legal stuff, Maggie. Nothing for you to worry about." I'd believed him. I'd always believed him. The smell of coffee woke me from a restless half-sleep around 6:30. I hadn't realized I'd dozed off. I dressed quickly in my usual jeans and flannel shirt, studying my face in the mirror. The woman who looked back at me had kind eyes and graying hair pulled into a practical bun. I looked exactly like what I was. A grandmother, a widow, a woman people underestimated. That might work to my advantage now. Beatrice was in the kitchen, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. She smiled when she saw me, the same warm smile she'd had since childhood. Morning, Mom. You're up early. Couldn't sleep, I said, accepting the coffee she offered. You? Oh, I slept like a rock. She laughed, adding cream to her mug. I don't even remember going to bed. I must have been more tired than I thought. The lie came so easily to her. I kept my face neutral, took a sip of coffee, and changed the subject. What are your plans for today? Actually, I need to run into town. Some errands to take care of. She avoided my eyes. I might be gone most of the day. Anything I can help with? No. Just boring paperwork stuff. You know how it is after a divorce. Boring legal stuff. The same phrase James had used. After Beatrice left, I stood at the kitchen window and watched her car disappear down the long driveway, dust rising in its wake. Then I moved with purpose. James's study had become a sort of shrine after his death. I'd kept everything exactly as he'd left it. His books on the shelves, his reading glasses on the desk, even his coffee mug, long since cleaned but returned to its spot beside the lamp. I'd dusted regularly, but never disturbed anything. Now I began to search. I started with the obvious places. The desk drawers, the filing cabinet. I found property taxes paid up to date, insurance documents, the deed to the farm in my name. Everything seemed in order. But Beatrice's message had said something was hidden. Where would James hide something he didn't want found? The morning stretched into afternoon. I searched methodically, removing books from shelves, checking behind picture frames, examining every inch of the study. Nothing. I was about to give up when I noticed something odd. The bookshelf on the east wall. It didn't sit quite flush against the baseboard. I knelt down, ignoring the protest from my knees, and ran my fingers along the bottom edge. There was a gap. A small one, but definitely a gap. I began removing books from the lower shelves, stacking them carefully on the floor. Once the bottom 3 shelves were empty, I could see it clearly. The bookshelf wasn't built into the wall like I'd always assumed. It was freestanding, pulled close, but not tight. My pulse quickened. I wedged my fingers into the gap and pulled. The bookshelf moved, surprisingly easy on hidden casters. Behind it was a small door, no more than 2 feet square, built into the wall itself. A hidden compartment. In my own house. Behind furniture I'd dusted for decades. The door had no lock, just a simple latch. My hand shook as I lifted it and pulled the door open. Inside was a metal box, old and dusty. I lifted it out carefully and set it on James's desk. The box wasn't locked either. Whatever secrets it held, James had trusted that no one would find this hiding place. He'd been wrong. I opened the box. Inside were documents. Legal documents, by the look of them. I lifted the first one out, unfolding it carefully. It was a deed, but not to our farm. This was for a property in Charleston, South Carolina. A beachfront property, according to the description. The deed was in James's name. Dated 31 years ago. I didn't understand. James had never mentioned property in Charleston. We'd never even vacationed there. Why would he have? The next document stopped my thoughts cold. It was a birth certificate for a child named Sue Bradley, born in Charleston. Mother's name, Catherine Bradley. Father's name, James Robert Mitchell. My husband's name. The birth date was 30 years ago, 6 months after the property deed. I sat down heavily in James's chair, the birth certificate trembling in my hands. A daughter. James had another daughter, which meant he'd had an affair, and Beatrice knew about it. The room spun. I forced myself to breathe, to think clearly. There were more documents in the box. I had to see them all before Beatrice returned. The next papers were letters, dozens of them, spanning years, all from Catherine Bradley, all addressed to James at a post office box I'd never known he had. I opened one at random, dated 15 years ago. James, Emma asks about you constantly. She wants to know why her father can't visit more often. I don't know what to tell her anymore. The money you send helps, but she needs more than that. She needs you. Please reconsider. She deserves to know her sisters. Catherine's sisters. Plural. My hands moved of their own accord, shuffling through the letters, looking for more recent ones. The last one was dated 6 months before James died. James, Emma is getting married. I know you can't come to the wedding, but she wanted you to know. She's still hoping you'll change your mind about meeting her, about telling your family the truth. We've kept your secret for 30 years. But Emma's done waiting. If you won't tell them, she will. Catherine. The letter was marked with a coffee stain. James must have been reading it when he died, right here at this desk. Heart attack, the doctors had said. Sudden and massive. Had the stress of this secret killed him? I heard a car engine in the distance. Beatrice was coming back. I quickly photographed every document with my phone, my hand steadier than I expected. Then I carefully returned everything to the metal box, placed it back in the hidden compartment, and closed the small door. I pushed the bookshelf back into place and restacked all the books, making sure everything looked undisturbed. By the time Beatrice's car pulled up outside, I was in the kitchen, starting dinner preparations like it was any normal evening. "Hey, Mom!" Beatrice called out, breezing through the door with shopping bags. "Sorry I was gone so long. I picked up some things in town." "That's fine, dear. How were your errands?" "All handled." She smiled, setting the bags on the counter. "Actually, I have some good news. Tom is driving up tomorrow. I thought it would be nice for all of us to have dinner together." Tom. My son. I hadn't seen him in 3 months. He lived in Boston, worked in finance, visited rarely. "That will be lovely," I said. But my mind was already working. Why was Beatrice gathering the family? What was happening tomorrow that required both of my children to be here? That night, I lay awake in bed, pieces of a puzzle shifting in my mind. Beatrice and Kenneth were working together despite their divorce. They were planning to move something, to transfer something. They'd mentioned the property deed, not the farm deed. I'd seen that in the files. It was in my name alone. The Charleston property deed. That had to be it. But why would Beatrice and Kenneth want it? And how did they even know about it? Unless Emma, my husband's illegitimate daughter, had told them. Unless she'd finally made good on her threat to reveal the truth. But what truth? That she existed. That she was James's daughter. Or something more. I rolled over and stared at the red numbers on my alarm clock. 2:47 a.m. In a few hours, Tom would be here. Beatrice had orchestrated this family gathering for a reason. Whatever was coming, I needed to be ready. I got up and went to my desk, opening my laptop. I typed Sue Bradley Charleston into the search engine and hit enter. The results made me close my eyes. Sue Bradley was an attorney, a real estate attorney specializing in inheritance law. And according to her firm's website, she had recently filed a claim in South Carolina probate court. The case name made my heart stop. Bradley v. Mitchell Estate, property rights and inheritance claim. She was coming for the Charleston property, and she wasn't coming alone. My children were helping her. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. Instead, I sat at my laptop, learning everything I could about Sue Bradley. She was 30 years old, exactly as the birth certificate indicated. Graduate of Duke University Law School. Partner at Bradley & Associates, her mother's firm, I realized with a jolt. Catherine Bradley had built a successful practice, and her daughter had joined her. The firm's website showed Emma's professional photo. I stared at it for a long time, searching for traces of James in her features. The nose, perhaps, the set of her jaw. But mostly, I saw a stranger who was threatening everything I'd built. By the time dawn broke, I had a plan. Not a complete one, but a beginning. I would say nothing to Beatrice or Tom. I would watch, listen, and learn. They thought I was a simple farm widow, someone to be managed and manipulated. Let them think that. People revealed more when they believed you were harmless. Tom arrived at 11, his expensive sedan looking out of place on our dirt driveway. He'd barely set foot in the house before Beatrice had her arms around him, whispering something in his ear that made him glance at me with an odd expression. "Mom," he said, crossing to kiss my cheek. "You look tired. Are you feeling all right?" "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just excited to see you." "We need to talk," Beatrice said, guiding us both toward the dining room. Family meeting. My stomach tightened, but I kept my face pleasant. "Of course. Should I make coffee?" "I'll get it," Tom said quickly. Too quickly. They didn't want me in the kitchen. Didn't want me to have time alone, time to think. Once we were seated around the dining table, the same table where I'd served thousands of family meals, Beatrice folded her hands and gave me her most sincere smile. Mom, we've been worried about you. Worried? Why? Tom jumped in. You're alone out here, on all this land. It's a lot for one person to manage. I manage fine. Old Jack helps with the heavy work, and I've hired the rap boy to help with the planting season. That's exactly it, Beatrice said. You're 64 years old, and you're still working like you're 30. It's not healthy. I felt the first stirrings of anger, but pushed them down. I enjoy the work. This farm is my life. Was Dad's life. Tom corrected gently. Not yours. The words stung more than he knew. Beatrice reached across the table and took my hand. We've been thinking about your future, about what's best for you. And what have you decided is best for me? I kept my voice light, curious. There's a wonderful retirement community about 30 miles from here, Tom said, pulling out a glossy brochure. Heritage Gardens, beautiful place. They have activities, a community center, medical staff on site. You'd have friends your own age. I have friends. Mom, Beatrice squeezed my hand. We love you. We just want you to be safe and comfortable. And the truth is, maintaining this farm is expensive. The property taxes alone, which I pay every year. But you're living on Dad's life insurance money, Tom said. That won't last forever. I pulled my hand back from Beatrice's grasp. This farm is profitable. I sell crops, rent out the back 40 acres. I'm not destitute. We know that. Beatrice's voice took on a soothing tone, the one she'd used when her children were small and throwing tantrums. But wouldn't it be nice to not have to worry? To just enjoy your retirement? What happens to the farm if I move to this Heritage Gardens? Silence. Tom and Beatrice exchanged a glance. We'd handle it, Tom finally said. Beatrice and I would manage the property, find renters or buyers. You wouldn't have to deal with any of it. You want me to sign over my farm? Not sign it over, Beatrice said quickly. Put it in a trust, for your protection. We'd be the trustees, but you'd still be the beneficiary. It's just a way to protect your assets as you get older. Protect my assets. From whom? I need to think about this, I said. Of course. Tom's smile was tight. But Mom, there's a time element here. What do you mean? There's a legal matter. Something that Dad handled years ago that's come back up. It's complicated, but there might be a claim against the estate. If we can get everything into a trust structure before… What kind of claim? I asked sharply. Another exchanged glance. It's nothing to worry about, Beatrice said. Just legal nonsense. But our attorney says it would be better to restructure things now, before it becomes a problem. Your attorney. You've already consulted an attorney about my property? For you, Mom. We did it for you. I stood up. I appreciate your concern, but I'm not ready to make any decisions. This is my home. Your father left it to me, and I'm not giving it up. No one's asking you to give it up, Tom said, frustration creeping into his voice. We're trying to protect it. And you. From what? Neither of them answered. That afternoon, while Tom and Beatrice talked quietly in the living room, I excused myself to run errands in town. I needed space to think, and I needed information. My first stop was the law office of Martin Reeves, who'd been our family attorney for 20 years. He was surprised to see me without an appointment. Margaret, what brings you in? I need to understand something about James's will, about the estate. Martin's expression shifted slightly. Has something happened? You tell me. Tom mentioned a claim against the estate. What claim? He hesitated, then gestured to a chair. I received notice 2 weeks ago. A woman named Sue Bradley has filed a petition in South Carolina, claiming she's entitled to a portion of James's estate, specifically a property in Charleston. You knew about the Charleston property? James consulted me about it years ago. It was purchased before your marriage, held in his name alone. Technically not marital property. Before our marriage. That was a lie. We'd been married 3 years when James bought that property. But Martin didn't know that. I'd seen the date on the deed. Did James leave instructions about this woman? About Emma? Martin shifted uncomfortably. He left a sealed letter to be opened only if someone came forward claiming to be his child. The letter was to be given to you. Where is it? Your daughter picked it up last week. She said you'd sent her. My blood ran cold. I didn't send her. Oh. Martin paled. Oh, Margaret, I'm so sorry. She had your permission in writing. I should have called to confirm. It's fine, I said, though it wasn't. Beatrice had forged my signature. Can you tell me what you know about this claim? Sue Bradley is represented by her mother's firm. They're claiming James acknowledged paternity privately, provided financial support for 30 years, and promised the Charleston property to Emma. They have evidence. Letters, bank transfers, the property deed itself. How would they have the deed? It's in my husband's study. According to their filing, Emma has a copy that James gave her mother. A copy with a handwritten note stating his intentions. I closed my eyes. James had given Catherine the deed. Why? As insurance? As proof of his commitment? What does this mean for me? I asked. The Charleston property is worth approximately $2.3 million. If Emma's claim is upheld, it would come out of the estate. Since the estate has been settled and distributed to you, you would essentially owe that amount. I don't have $2.3 million. I know. Which is why your children are probably suggesting you restructure your assets. If the farm is in a trust, it's protected from claims against you personally. But if I'm the trustee, you wouldn't be. Your children would be. You'd be the beneficiary, but you wouldn't control the assets. I stood abruptly. Thank you, Martin. Margaret, wait. We need to discuss your options. Prepare a defense. I'll be in touch. I walked out before he could see the tears of rage burning in my eyes. My next stop was the county clerk's office. I requested copies of all property records associated with James's name. The clerk, a young woman named Jessica who'd gone to school with Beatrice, smiled sympathetically. This might take a while, Mrs. Mitchell. Your husband's name is on quite a few properties. What do you mean, quite a few? She turned her computer screen toward me. James's name appeared on 7 different property records. I recognized our farm, of course. But the other 6? Can you print these for me? Sure thing. While Jessica worked, I studied the screen. 2 properties in our county, small parcels of land I'd never heard of. 1 in Charleston, which I knew about now, and 3 in other states, Florida, Colorado, and Maine. When had James bought these? How had he paid for them? And more importantly, who knew about them? Jessica handed me the printouts. Here you go. That'll be $15 for copies. I paid, thanked her, and walked back to my truck in a daze. James hadn't just had an affair. He'd had a secret life, properties scattered across the country, bank accounts I'd never known about. There must have been accounts to pay for all this. Maybe other women, other children. The man I'd loved, trusted, built a life with. I'd never really known him at all. I sat in the truck, staring at the papers. Then I noticed something odd. One of the local properties, a 10-acre parcel on the outskirts of town, had a recent notation. A lien had been placed on it 2 weeks ago. The lien holder, Kenneth Whitfield, Beatrice's ex-husband. I drove back to the farm with my mind racing. Kenneth had a lien on property that technically belonged to me as James's heir. How had he managed that? Unless Beatrice had given him access to the deed. Unless they were systematically taking control of James's secret properties before I even knew they existed. The farmhouse was quiet when I returned. Tom's car was gone. He'd mentioned a dinner meeting in town. Beatrice was in the kitchen, preparing supper. Mom, you're back. I was getting worried. Just ran some errands. I set my purse on the counter. Where's Tom? He had to meet with someone. Business stuff. He'll be back tonight. She stirred something on the stove. I thought I'd make your favorite, pot roast. That's sweet of you. We moved around each other in the kitchen, a careful dance we'd perfected over the years. But everything had changed. I wasn't the trusting mother anymore, and she wasn't the daughter I thought I knew. Beatrice, I said casually, did your father ever mention property in Charleston to you? Her hand froze on the wooden spoon. Just for a second, but I saw it. Charleston? No. Why? Just something I came across in his papers. Probably nothing. Probably. She turned back to the stove. You know Dad kept a lot of business stuff private. He didn't want to worry you with details. That phrase again. Legal stuff. Business stuff. Details I didn't need to worry about. Did Kenneth ever meet your father? I mean, really talk to him? Sure, at family dinners and holidays. Why all the questions, Mom? Just feeling nostalgic, I suppose. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Well, dinner will be ready in an hour. Why don't you rest? You look exhausted. I went to my room, but I didn't rest. Instead, I pulled out the documents I'd photographed from James's hidden box. I studied every letter, every date, looking for patterns. Catherine's letters mentioned money James sent regularly. I'd never seen unusual withdrawals from our joint account, which meant he had another account, possibly several. I opened my laptop and logged into our bank. I'd never paid much attention to the accounts before, trusting that everything was in order. Now I looked with new eyes. Our joint checking and savings were there, as expected. But there was another account listed under James's name alone. An account I'd never noticed. It showed a balance of 0, closed 3 months after James died. I clicked on the transaction history. In the months before his death, James had been moving money. Large amounts. 50,000 here. 75,000 there. All transferred to accounts I couldn't access, couldn't trace. The last transfer, made 2 days before he died, was for $200,000. The receiving account belonged to Bradley and Associates. James had been paying them off, buying their silence, fulfilling a promise. I didn't know. What I did know was that the money was gone. Nearly $500,000, drained from an account I hadn't known existed, now beyond my reach. A knock on my bedroom door made me jump. I quickly closed the laptop. Mom? Beatrice's voice. Dinner's ready. Coming. I opened the door to find her standing there, and for just a moment I saw something in her expression. Not love, not concern. Calculation. After dinner, she said, we need to talk about the trust. Tom brought the papers. They just need your signature. Tonight? The lawyer says time is critical. There's a hearing scheduled in Charleston next week. If we don't have the trust in place by then... She stopped. It would be better if we do it tonight. I haven't even read the papers. Tom and I have gone over everything. It's all standard. And honestly, Mom, do you really understand trust law? We're just trying to help. There it was. The dismissal. The assumption that I was too old, too simple, too trusting to understand. They had no idea what I'd learned today. All right, I said quietly. Let's have dinner. Then we'll look at the papers. Beatrice beamed. Perfect. You're making the right choice, Mom. As I followed her down the stairs, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Sue Bradley. We need to talk before you sign anything. Your children aren't telling you the truth. I'm not your enemy. Please call me. I deleted the text before Beatrice could see, but I'd already memorized the number. Dinner was a performance. I played my role perfectly, the confused elderly widow, grateful for her children's guidance. I asked simple questions about the trust, let Tom explain things in his patient, condescending tone. I nodded and smiled while Beatrice refilled my wine glass, trying to dull my senses. I barely touched the wine. The key thing to understand, Mom, Tom said, spreading papers across the dining table, is that this protects you. If there are claims against the estate, and there are, your personal assets remain untouchable. But the farm would belong to the trust. The trust would own it, yes. But you're the beneficiary. You'd still live here, still receive income from it. The only difference is that Beatrice and I would handle the administrative details, pay the bills, manage the taxes, deal with any legal issues. And you'd both be trustees? Equal co-trustees, Beatrice confirmed. Everything requiring a major decision we'd discuss with you first. This is just paperwork, Mom. Protection. I picked up the document. 23 pages of legal language. I read slowly, pretending to struggle with the terminology. In reality, I'd spent the last 2 hours before dinner researching trust law online. What Tom and Beatrice weren't telling me was that as trustees, they could sell the property without my consent. They could liquidate assets, transfer funds, make investments. And if they declared me incompetent, which required only 2 doctors' signatures, they could do anything they wanted. I wasn't signing this, but I needed them to believe I would. It's a lot to take in, I said finally. Can I sleep on it? Review it one more time tomorrow morning? Tom's jaw tightened. Mom, the Charleston hearing is in 6 days. We need to file this trust with the court before then. One more night won't make a difference, will it? Actually, it might, Beatrice said. Her voice had lost some of its warmth. The attorney specifically said we needed to move quickly. Every day we wait is a day that woman's claim gains strength. That woman? You mean Sue Bradley? Silence. They hadn't expected me to know the name. How do you know about her? Tom asked sharply. I went to see Martin Reeves today. He told me about the claim, about the Charleston property. I looked between them. You should have told me yourselves. We were going to, Beatrice said quickly. We just didn't want to upset you until we had a plan to handle it. By taking away my control of my own property? By protecting you? Tom stood abruptly. You don't understand what's happening here. This woman, this illegitimate daughter Dad apparently had, she's not just claiming the Charleston property. She's going after everything. She has lawyers, evidence, a whole strategy to prove Dad defrauded her and her mother for 30 years. Did he? Defraud them? Tom stared at me. What? Your father had an affair. He had a child. He hid it from me for 3 decades. Maybe he did defraud them. Maybe Sue Bradley deserves something. She deserves nothing, Beatrice hissed. She's a gold digger trying to steal our inheritance. Our inheritance, not my property. Our inheritance. I need to think, I said, standing. I'll give you my answer tomorrow. Mom? Tomorrow, Tom. I left them at the table and climbed the stairs to my room. I locked the door, something I never did, and pulled out my phone. Sue Bradley's number glowed on the screen. I stared at it for a long moment, then dialed. She answered on the second ring. Mrs. Mitchell, thank you for calling. Her voice was young, professional, but I heard something else underneath. Nervousness. Hope. You said my children aren't telling me the truth. What truth? Can we meet? This isn't a conversation for the phone. I can't leave the house right now. They're watching me. A pause. Are you in danger? I don't know. The admission felt strange. Dangerous. Tell me what you know. Why did you contact me now, after all these years? I heard her take a breath. My mother died 3 months ago. Cancer. Before she died, she gave me a letter from my father. From James. He wrote it the week before he died. In it, he told me the truth about everything. What truth? That he loved my mother. That he wanted to leave your marriage but couldn't because of money. Your farm. It wasn't just your farm. It was built on my grandmother's money. I sat down hard on the bed. What? James's mother, your mother-in-law, she had money from her family. When she died, she left everything to James with one condition. It had to stay in the Mitchell family, passed down through the legitimate line. If James divorced you, he'd lose everything. That's not true. Martha loved me. She wouldn't have. She put it in her will, Mrs. Mitchell. I have a copy. James was trapped. He loved Catherine, but he needed your marriage to keep his inheritance. My head spun. Martha had died 28 years ago, leaving James the money to expand the farm, to build it into something profitable. I'd thought it was because she trusted him. Trusted us. Even if that's true, I said slowly, what does it have to do with now? James is dead. The inheritance came to him, and then to me. That's the problem. My father's letter explained that he'd been systematically moving assets out of the marital estate for years, buying properties in his name alone, creating accounts you didn't know about. The Charleston property was supposed to be my inheritance, but there were others too. He was building a separate estate for me. 7 properties, I whispered. I found the records today. 8, actually. There's one more in Nevada that hasn't been properly recorded yet. Together, they're worth close to $4 million. $4 million. Money James had hidden from me. Money he'd meant for his illegitimate daughter. Your children know about all of it, Emma continued. Beatrice contacted me 6 months ago, right after your father died. She said she wanted to make things right. She offered me a deal. My stomach dropped. What kind of deal? She and Tom would help me claim the properties. They'd provide documents, testimony, whatever I needed. In exchange, we'd split everything 50-50. They'd get $2 million, I'd get $2 million, and you'd be left with the farm. But the farm is mortgaged, Mrs. Mitchell. Your husband arranged a reverse mortgage 2 years before he died, and he did it using financial documents you never saw. Once you're gone, the bank takes the farm. You're living in a property you don't really own, and your children know it. I couldn't breathe. The room tilted. I turned down their offer. Emma said quietly, I don't want to destroy you. You're a victim here, just like my mother was. But Beatrice didn't give up. She went to Kenneth, your ex-son-in-law. He's the one who's been helping them, using his banking connections to place liens on the properties, to establish legal claims before you could discover what was happening. Why are you telling me this? Because the letter my father left. It changed everything. He wrote that he was ashamed of what he'd done to you, that you deserved the truth. He wanted me to wait until you were ready, to approach you gently, to work something out that was fair to everyone. Her voice cracked. He loved my mother, but he respected you. He knew you'd been betrayed worse than anyone. What do you want from me? I want to stop your children from stealing everything. I want to honor what my father actually wanted, which was for all of us to be treated fairly. And Mrs. Mitchell, I want to meet you. You're my father's wife. That makes you... I don't know what it makes you, but you're the only family I have left. Footsteps in the hallway. Tom's voice low and urgent. She's been in there too long. Who's she talking to? I lowered my voice to barely a whisper. I have to go. Can you send me copies of everything? The letter, the will, all of it? Already sent to your email. Check your spam folder. I had to use an encrypted service. Tomorrow, I said. I'll call you tomorrow. I ended the call just as someone tried my door handle. Finding it locked, they knocked. Mom, are you okay? Beatrice's voice laced with suspicion. I flushed the toilet, ran the bathroom sink. I'm fine. Just getting ready for bed. Can we talk for a minute? I unlocked the door. Beatrice stood there with Tom behind her, both of them wearing identical expressions of fake concern. We're worried, Beatrice said. You seem upset, confused. I'm tired. It's been a long day. Has anyone contacted you? Tom asked bluntly. Anyone claiming to be related to Dad? I met his eyes steadily. No. Should I expect someone to? Sue Bradley might try to manipulate you, Beatrice said. She's desperate. Her mother's firm is failing, and she sees us, sees you as an easy target. She'll say anything to get money. I thought you said she was a gold digger with lawyers and a strategy. They exchanged glances. Both can be true, Tom said. The point is, don't talk to her. Don't believe anything she says. And please, Mom, sign the trust papers. Let us protect you. I'll read them again tonight. Give you my answer in the morning. After they left, I opened my laptop and found Emma's email in my spam folder, just as she'd said. The attachments took several minutes to download. James's letter to Emma was dated 5 days before he died. My dearest Emma, I am a coward. I've always been a coward. I chose money over love, security over honesty, and I've hurt everyone because of it. Your mother deserved better than stolen moments and secret phone calls. You deserved a father who claimed you proudly, and Margaret deserved a faithful husband. But Margaret also deserves the truth, and I don't have the courage to tell her while I'm alive. I'm leaving this to you, hoping that someday you'll find a way to help her understand. The properties are yours, as promised. But please, be kind to Margaret. She knew nothing of my deceptions. She's a good woman who loved a very flawed man. I'm sorry I'll never get to walk you down the aisle. I'm sorry for every missed birthday, every lie, every moment I chose comfort over courage. Your father, James. I read it 3 times, tears blurring the words. The next document was Martha's will. Emma was right. The inheritance clause was explicit. James could keep the money only if he remained married and childless outside the marriage. If he divorced or acknowledged illegitimate children, everything reverted to Martha's sister's family. So James had hidden Emma, not just from me, but from everyone. because acknowledging her would have cost him millions. The final document was the one that made me close my eyes in pain. It was a signed statement from Beatrice, dated 4 months ago, addressed to Emma. I hereby confirm my intention to testify that James Mitchell systematically defrauded Catherine Bradley and their daughter Emma by hiding assets that rightfully belonged to them. In exchange for my testimony and the provision of necessary documents, Sue Bradley agrees to transfer 50% of all property values to myself and my brother Tom Mitchell, following successful litigation. Furthermore, I confirm that Margaret Mitchell is showing signs of cognitive decline and will require a conservatorship within the year, which Tom and I will petition for, allowing us full control of all remaining assets. Beatrice had signed it, notarized it, legally bound herself to betraying me. I printed everything. I made backup copies on a USB drive. And then I did something I hadn't done in 8 years. I called my brother Frank, who lived in Montana. Frank, who'd served 30 years as a judge. Frank, who I'd barely spoken to since James's funeral because he'd never liked my husband. Maggie? His voice was gruff, surprised. Everything all right? No, I said. Frank, I need help. Legal help. And I need you to not ask questions until I can explain everything. I'm listening. How fast can you get to South Carolina? A pause. Charleston? You know about the hearing? Sue Bradley's attorney contacted me 3 weeks ago, asked if I'd be willing to review the case, give an opinion on its merits. And? I told her I couldn't. Conflict of interest. You're my sister. But Maggie, I read the filing. If even half of what she claims is true, it's all true, all of it. And it's worse than she knows. Tell me. So I did. Everything. The hidden compartment. The properties. The letters. Beatrice's betrayal. The trust papers waiting for my signature downstairs. When I finished, Frank was quiet for a long moment. You need to get out of that house, he said finally. Tonight. If your children think you're about to expose them, there's no telling what they'll do. They wouldn't hurt me. Money makes people do terrible things. I've seen it 1,000 times in court. I can't run. This is my home. Then you need leverage. Something that makes you untouchable. Like what? Like a recorded confession. Can you get them to admit what they're planning? I thought about it. Maybe, but I'd need time. And I'd need them to think they've won. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I said slowly, that I'm going to sign their trust papers tomorrow. But first, I'm going to make a few changes they won't notice. Maggie, trust me, Frank. I spent 40 years married to a man who hid things in plain sight. I learned a few tricks. After I hung up with Frank, I opened the trust document on my laptop. Tom had emailed me a digital copy, probably assuming I couldn't figure out how to edit it. He was wrong. I'd been teaching myself computer skills for 2 years, ever since James died and left me to manage everything alone. I knew how to edit PDFs, how to make changes that looked seamless. I worked until 3 in the morning, making small alterations. A clause here, a condition there. Nothing obvious, but enough that, if a good judge or lawyer ever looked closely, they'd see exactly how Beatrice and Tom had tried to use this trust against me. When I finally crawled into bed, I felt something I hadn't felt in days. Hope, and beneath it, something harder and sharper. Anger. Tomorrow I would sign their papers. I would play the grateful mother. And I would set my trap. I came downstairs at 7 the next morning wearing my best smile and carrying the trust documents. Beatrice and Tom were already in the kitchen, both nursing coffee and wearing the exhausted expressions of people who'd stayed up late strategizing. They looked up sharply when I entered. I've made my decision, I said, setting the papers on the counter. I'll sign. The relief on their faces was almost comical. Almost. Mom, that's wonderful, Beatrice said, moving to embrace me. You're doing the right thing. I know this wasn't easy, Tom added. But you'll see. This will make everything so much simpler. I do have a few questions, I said, pulling back from Beatrice's hug, just to make sure I understand everything. Tom's expression tightened slightly. Of course. What do you want to know? The clause about distributions. It says you can sell property within the trust without my approval if it's in my best interest. How do you determine that? We'd discuss it with you first, Beatrice assured me. It's just legal language that gives us flexibility to act quickly if we need to. And the part about healthcare decisions? Standard stuff. If you became ill or incapacitated, we'd be able to make medical decisions on your behalf. Define incapacitated. Tom shifted uncomfortably. Mom, why are you asking all this? Do you want to sign or not? I want to understand what I'm signing. Is that unreasonable? No, of course not. Beatrice's voice had an edge now. Incapacitated means unable to make decisions for yourself. If you had dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that. I see. And who determines if I'm incapacitated? Medical professionals. Doctors. Which doctors? Mom. Tom set down his coffee cup hard enough to make me flinch. What's with the interrogation? Do you trust us or not? I let silence hang in the air for a moment. Then I picked up the pen. I trust that you're my children, I said quietly. And that you want what you think is best for me. I signed the document with a steady hand. 3 copies, each signature witnessed by Beatrice and Tom, each page initialed. The whole process took 10 minutes. When it was done, Tom gathered the papers with barely concealed eagerness. I'll take these to the attorney today. Get everything filed properly. When does it take effect? I asked. Immediately. Once we file with the court and the county recorder, the transfer is complete. So as of today, I no longer own my home. You're the beneficiary, Beatrice reminded me. It's still yours. We're just managing it. Right. Managing it. After Tom left with the documents, Beatrice seemed to relax. She made breakfast, pancakes my favorite, and chatted about her plans to help me redecorate the living room, maybe update the kitchen. We could really make this place shine, she said. Increase its value. For when you sell it? She laughed. Mom, stop being so paranoid. Nobody's selling anything. We're protecting it. For you. For your future. I ate my pancakes and said nothing. That afternoon, while Beatrice was on a long phone call in her room, with Kenneth, I assumed, based on the hushed, urgent tone, I retrieved my laptop and opened an encrypted email account I'd created overnight. I had 3 messages waiting. The first was from Frank. Documents received. I've shared them with a colleague who specializes in trust law. You did good work on those edits. They won't see it coming. The second was from Emma. My attorney wants to meet with you. She thinks we can stop this, but we need to move fast. The hearing is in 4 days. The third was from an address I didn't recognize. Mrs. Mitchell, this is Dr. Karen Reynolds from Heritage Gardens. Your daughter scheduled an intake appointment for you next Tuesday. She mentioned concerns about your cognitive health. I thought you should know. My hands shook as I typed replies. To Frank. Standing by. We'll record conversation tonight if possible. To Emma. Tell your attorney I'll meet her tomorrow. Somewhere public. I'll call with details. To Dr. Reynolds. Thank you for the warning. I will not be attending that appointment. If my daughter contacts you again, please document everything. I was just closing the laptop when I heard footsteps on the stairs. I quickly opened a solitaire game instead. Beatrice appeared in the doorway. Having fun? Just keeping my mind sharp. You know what they say about idle brains? She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. Tom and I have been thinking, maybe you should see a doctor. Just a checkup. Make sure everything's okay. I feel fine. I know, but you're at an age where things can change quickly. Early detection is important. Detection of what? Memory issues, confusion. You've been asking a lot of repeated questions lately. Have I? Yesterday, you asked me 3 times what time Tom was arriving. I hadn't, but arguing would only make me seem defensive, confused. Maybe you're right, I said slowly. A checkup couldn't hurt. Great! I actually already made you an appointment. Tuesday at 10. That was efficient. I just want you taken care of, Mom. After she left, I sat very still. They were moving faster than I'd anticipated. The appointment with Dr. Reynolds was in 4 days. They'd have me evaluated, probably by a doctor they'd already coached. He'd find signs of cognitive decline, confusion, memory issues, inability to manage finances. With that diagnosis, The conservatorship petition would be approved in weeks. I had 4 days to stop them. That evening, I set my phone to record and slipped it into my cardigan pocket. Then I called both children into the living room. "I want to talk about the farm," I said. "About what happens after I'm gone." "Mom, let's not talk about that," Beatrice protested. "I'm 64 years old and I've had 2 heart scares. We need to talk about it." I folded my hands in my lap. "When I die, the farm goes to the trust. And you two split everything equally?" "That's right," Tom confirmed. "What about Sue Bradley?" The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "What about her?" Tom asked carefully. "She's James's daughter, your half-sister. Doesn't she deserve something?" "She deserves nothing," Beatrice said flatly. "She's the product of an affair that humiliated you, that broke our family." "Our family wasn't broken. I never knew about it." "Exactly. Dad was a cheater and a liar, and you want to reward the evidence of his betrayal?" "I want to do what's right." Tom leaned forward. "Mom, listen to me. Sue Bradley is a con artist. She and her mother plotted for 30 years to get their hands on Dad's money. Now that he's dead and can't defend himself, she's making her move. She doesn't care about you. She doesn't care about family. She cares about money. How do you know what she cares about? Because I've dealt with people like her in finance for 20 years. I know a scam when I see one. Have you met her?" Silence. "Have you?" I pressed. "I spoke with her once," Beatrice admitted, "when she first contacted us after Dad died. She was cold, calculating. She laid out exactly what she wanted, down to the dollar. It was disgusting. What did she want? Half of everything. She actually believed she deserved half of Dad's estate. And what did you tell her? To get lost." Tom stood abruptly. "And that's what you should tell her too, if she contacts you. Which I'm sure she will, now that the hearing is approaching. She'll try to manipulate you, play on your emotions, maybe even threaten you." "Threaten me how?" "These people will say anything. Claim Dad promised them things, that he wanted them to have the farm, that you don't deserve what you have." He moved to stand over me, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of real fear. "You can't trust her, Mom. You can only trust us. Because you're my children. Because we love you." Beatrice took my hand. "Sue Bradley doesn't love you. She doesn't even know you. We're your family. We're the ones who'll take care of you when you can't take care of yourself." "Am I having trouble taking care of myself?" Another exchange of glances. "Sometimes," Beatrice said gently. "You forget things. You get confused. It's normal at your age, but it worries us." "Give me an example of something I've forgotten." "You left the stove on 3 times last week." "I did? You don't remember." Her voice was thick with false sympathy. "That's exactly what we're talking about, Mom. These little lapses. They're getting worse. I hadn't left the stove on once. But again, denying it would only support their narrative. Maybe I do need that doctor's appointment," I said softly. "We'll take care of everything," Tom assured me. "You just rest. Let us handle the complicated stuff." After they went to bed, I listened to the recording. It was perfect. Their lies, their manipulation, their admission that they'd spoken with Emma and rejected her claim. All captured clearly. But it wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed them to reveal their real plan. The next morning, I told Beatrice I was going to the grocery store. She immediately offered to come with me. "I need the independence," I insisted. "The doctor's going to ask about my daily activities. I should practice doing normal things on my own." She reluctantly agreed, but I saw her watching from the window as I drove away. I didn't go to the grocery store. I drove to a coffee shop in the next town and met Sue Bradley face to face for the first time. She was sitting in a corner booth, and I recognized her immediately. Not from her photo, but from the shape of her eyes. James's eyes. "Mrs. Mitchell." She stood as I approached. "Thank you for coming. Call me Margaret." I slid into the booth across from her. "We're family, apparently." "I know this must be—" "Tell me about your mother," I interrupted. "Tell me about Catherine." For the next hour, Emma told me the story. How her mother had met James at a real estate conference in Charleston. How they'd fallen in love despite his marriage. How Catherine had believed James when he said he'd leave me once his business was more stable. She waited 10 years before she realized he never would, Emma said. But by then, I existed, and she loved him too much to force his hand. Did he love her? I think so, in his way. He visited when he could, called every week. He never missed sending money, but he also never chose her over you. Over his inheritance, you mean? Emma nodded. He told my mother about the will, about what he'd lose if he divorced. She said she understood, but I think it broke her heart. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand. My mother never wanted to hurt you. She thought of you as a victim too, and I feel the same way. She pushed a folder across the table. This is everything my attorney has prepared for the hearing. Evidence, testimony, property valuations. You should see what you're up against. I opened the folder. The top document was a financial analysis. If Emma won her case, I would owe $3.7 million. Money I didn't have. The farm, even without the reverse mortgage, wasn't worth that much. You'd destroy me, I said quietly. No, your children would destroy you. They're the ones who set this in motion. She pulled out another document. This is what I'm actually filing with the court tomorrow. A revised petition. I read it slowly. Emma was claiming only the Charleston property and two others, the ones James had explicitly promised her in his letter. Total value, approximately $1.8 million. Still a fortune, but survivable. The rest of the properties, Emma said, I'm arguing should return to you. My father bought them with money he hid from you, which makes them marital property that should have been disclosed. You deserve them. Why would you do this? Because it's the right thing to do. And because, she hesitated, because I'd like to know you, my father's wife, the woman he chose to stay with, even when it cost him everything else. I felt tears burn my eyes. He didn't choose me. He chose money, maybe at first. But I read his journals, Margaret. He wrote about you. Near the end, he knew he'd made the wrong choice. Not in staying married, in lying. He wished he'd been honest from the start. Let everyone make their own choices. He was a coward, yes. But he was also my father. And yours? Well, your husband. That has to mean something. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Beatrice. Where are you? You've been gone 2 hours. Are you okay? I have to go, I said, standing. They're watching me. Margaret, wait. My attorney needs you to testify at the hearing about the trust Beatrice and Tom made you sign, about their plans. I can't. If I testify against my own children, they're planning to have you declared incompetent. Once that happens, you lose everything. Your home, your freedom, your voice. Is that what you want? Of course not. Then fight. We'll fight together. I looked at this young woman, my husband's secret daughter, my children's half-sister. She should have been my enemy. Instead, she might be my only ally. I'll think about it, I said. But as I drove home, I knew I'd already made my decision. The recording in my pocket, Emma's revised petition, Frank's legal expertise, I had the pieces. Now I just needed to put them together before Tuesday's appointment, before my children could take away everything I was. I pulled into the driveway to find a car I didn't recognize parked near the house. Beatrice came out to meet me, her face tight with barely concealed anger. Where were you? Grocery store. Why? Your bags. I'd forgotten to actually buy groceries. I got there and realized I'd forgotten my wallet. I had to come back. Your wallet is in your purse. I looked down. She was right. I thought I'd left it on my dresser. Mom. Beatrice's voice was sharp. Dr. Reynolds called. She said you emailed her, saying you wouldn't come to your appointment. Why would you do that? I don't remember emailing her. You don't remember, or you don't want to go? I don't remember. The lie tasted bitter, but I saw it register on Beatrice's face. More evidence of my declining mental state. Who's here? I asked, gesturing to the strange car. Someone who needs to meet you. Come inside. The man sitting in my living room stood when I entered. He was tall, 50s, wearing an expensive suit. Mrs. Mitchell, he said, extending his hand. I'm Dr. Richard Sawyer. Your children asked me to stop by for an informal chat. About? About how you're managing. Just a few questions. Nothing to worry about. I'm not answering any questions without my attorney present. Dead silence. Mom, Tom said, appearing from the kitchen. Dr. Sawyer is just trying to help. I don't need help. I need all of you to leave my house. As trustees, we're responsible for managing the property now, Beatrice said quietly. Which means we have authority over who comes and goes. Get out. Dr. Sawyer, Tom said, ignoring me. As you can see, she's exhibiting paranoid behavior, aggression, memory loss. We're very concerned. I can see why, Dr. Sawyer said, making notes. Mrs. Mitchell, I'd like to ask you a few simple questions. What year is it? 2024. Who's the president? I'm not playing this game. Confusion and resistance are common symptoms, he murmured, writing more. I want you out of my house. Now. Mom, please calm down, Beatrice said. You're only making things worse. And then I understood. This was it. This was their move. They'd brought a doctor here to evaluate me without my consent, to build their case for incompetency. I pulled out my phone. What are you doing? Tom demanded. Calling my attorney. He moved fast, grabbing the phone from my hand. You're confused. You don't need an attorney. You need help. Give me back my phone. Mom, please, I screamed. Not words, just a loud, piercing scream that made all three of them freeze. Help! Someone help me! Dr. Sawyer backed toward the door. I think we should do this another time. No! Beatrice grabbed his arm. She's having an episode. This is exactly what we've been dealing with. You need to see this. But I saw something flicker in his eyes. Doubt. Or maybe conscience. I'm leaving, he said firmly. This isn't appropriate without proper consent and procedures. After he left, I faced my children. Get out of my house, I said quietly. Both of you. We're not going anywhere, Tom said. You're not well. You need supervision. Then I'll leave. With what car? I have your keys. He did. I could see them in his hand. My car keys and my phone. I was trapped. I spent that night locked in my bedroom. Not by a physical lock, they weren't that obvious, but by the knowledge that Tom sat at the bottom of the stairs, keeping an eye on me, as Beatrice had put it. They'd taken my phone, my car keys, even my laptop. Beatrice had come to my room with dinner on a tray, like I was an invalid. You need to rest, Mom. Tomorrow we'll take you to see Dr. Sawyer properly, at his office where you'll be more comfortable. I don't need a doctor. You screamed at us today. You accused us of trying to hurt you. You forgot to buy groceries, forgot you'd emailed Dr. Reynolds, forgot that you'd already signed the trust papers. She'd set the tray on my nightstand with exaggerated care. These aren't normal behaviors, Mom. We're worried. After she left, I'd eaten the soup mechanically, my mind racing. They were building a narrative. The confused elderly woman, exhibiting paranoid delusions, unable to care for herself. By the time they were done, everyone would believe I needed to be in a facility. But they'd made one mistake. They'd assumed I was helpless. At midnight, I heard Tom's heavy footsteps climbing the stairs, heading to the guest room. I waited another hour, listening to the house settle into silence. Then I moved. Years of living in this old farmhouse had taught me which floorboards creaked and which stayed silent. I crossed my room in the darkness, opened my window, grateful I'd kept the hinges oiled, and looked down. 15 feet to the ground. Not an easy drop for a 64-year-old woman, but not impossible either. The trellis James had built 20 years ago still clung to the side of the house, covered in climbing roses. I'd spent 40 years caring for those roses. They owed me. I changed into dark clothes, grabbed my purse, they'd forgotten to search it, and it still held some cash and my credit cards, and climbed out the window. The trellis groaned under my weight, but held. Thorns caught at my clothes and scratched my hands, but I kept moving. When I was low enough, I dropped the last few feet, landing hard and rolling on instinct. Pain shot through my hip, but nothing felt broken. I stayed low, moving along the side of the house toward the barn. Old Jack kept a truck there for farm work. The keys hung on a nail inside the barn door, exactly where they'd hung for 15 years. Some habits outlasted marriages, outlasted trust, outlasted everything. I was in the truck and halfway down the driveway before I heard shouting from the house. Lights blazed on. In my rearview mirror, I saw Tom running out in his pajamas. Too late. I drove through the darkness toward town, my hands shaking on the wheel. I needed help. Needed a safe place. Needed. The police station appeared on my right. I almost pulled in but stopped myself. What would I tell them? That my children had taken my phone and keys? They'd say it was for my own good. That I'd signed over my property? That was legal. That they'd brought a doctor to evaluate me? No crime there. With my phone, and the recording I'd made on it, gone, I had no proof of anything except my own fear. Instead, I drove to the one place I knew they wouldn't look. The Sunrise Motel, a run-down place on the edge of town that James had always called an eyesore. I paid cash for a room, ignored the night clerk's curious look, and locked myself inside. Only then did I let myself shake. I'd climbed out a window, stolen a truck, run away in the middle of the night. Everything I'd just done would look like the actions of a confused, paranoid woman having a breakdown. They were winning, and I was helping them. I sat on the sagging motel bed and tried to think clearly. The hearing was in 2 days. Emma was filing her revised petition, the one that would expose Beatrice and Tom's original deal with her. But without my testimony, without proof of what my children had done, Emma's word alone wouldn't be enough. I needed my phone. I needed the recordings. And I needed Frank. The motel room had a phone, an ancient landline that took coins. I dug quarters out of my purse and dialed Frank's number from memory. He answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. "Hello? Frank, it's Maggie. What's wrong? It's 2 a.m. Everything. Frank, I need you to come to South Carolina, now. And I need you to bring someone who can help." What happened? I told him everything. The locked room, the stolen phone, my escape through the window. "They're going to use this against you," Frank said grimly. "Climbing out windows, stealing vehicles? They'll say it proves you're not thinking clearly." "I know. That's why I need help." "Frank, the hearing is in 2 days. Can you get here?" "I'm already packing." "But Maggie, you need to stay somewhere safe. They'll be looking for you." "I'm at a motel, the Sunrise on Route 17. Stay there. Don't go anywhere. I'll be there by tonight." After I hung up, I lay back on the thin pillow and stared at the water-stained ceiling. I'd never felt more alone, more vulnerable, more uncertain, but I'd also never felt more determined. Morning came with pounding on my door. "Mrs. Mitchell, it's Officer Dave Patterson. Your children filed a missing person report. They're worried about you." I opened the door to find Dave Patterson, who'd graduated high school with Tom, standing there with genuine concern on his young face. "I'm not missing, Dave. I'm right here. They said you might be confused, ma'am. That you climbed out a window in the middle of the night." "I left my own house. Through a window. In the middle of the night." He shifted uncomfortably. Your son expressed concerns about possible memory issues. I just need to make sure you're okay." "My son is lying. I'm sure he's just concerned." "Dave." I met his eyes. "Have I ever seemed confused to you? In all the times you've seen me at the grocery store, at church, around town?" He hesitated. "No, ma'am." "Then maybe you should ask yourself why my children are suddenly so certain I'm incompetent, and why they waited until after I signed over my property to decide I need help." I saw something shift in his expression. Dave might be young, but he wasn't stupid. "I'm not going back with you," I continued. "I'm not breaking any laws. I'm a grown woman staying in a motel room. If my children want to speak with me, they can do it in public, with witnesses present. They're asking for a welfare check, ma'am. I need to verify you're okay." "I'm fine. You can tell them you saw me. I'm healthy and coherent, and I'm staying where I am." After Dave left, I knew I had maybe an hour before Beatrice and Tom showed up themselves. I had to move. I called Emma from the motel phone. She answered immediately. "Margaret? Thank God. Beatrice called me this morning, saying you'd disappeared. She wanted to know if you'd contacted me." "What did you tell her?" "That I hadn't heard from you. Are you all right? I need your help. Can you meet me? And bring your attorney?" "Where are you?" I hesitated, then decided I had no choice but to trust her. "Sunrise Motel, Route 17, Room 12. And Emma?" Come soon. They're looking for me. She arrived 40 minutes later with a woman in her 50s who introduced herself as Karen Rapp, attorney at law. Mrs. Mitchell? Karen said, sitting across from me in the motel room's single chair while Emma perched on the bed. Emma has told me about your situation. I want to be clear. I represent Emma in the estate matter. But what your children are doing to you is unconscionable. If you're willing to testify at tomorrow's hearing, I believe we can stop them. Tomorrow? I thought the hearing was in 2 days. We filed an emergency motion last night to move it up. The judge agreed. It's tomorrow at 10 a.m. What do I need to do? Tell the truth. About the trust they made you sign. About their plans for conservatorship. About everything they've hidden from you. She pulled papers from her briefcase. I also need you to sign this affidavit. It's your sworn statement about what's happened. I read it carefully. Everything was there. The hidden documents, Beatrice's forged signature at Martin Reeves's office, the property transfers, Tom and Beatrice's deal with Emma, their attempt to have me evaluated. I signed it. Now, Karen said, we need to keep you safe until tomorrow. Your children can't know where you are. Frank is coming, my brother. He'll be here tonight. Good. The more family on your side, the better. She stood. The hearing is at the county courthouse. Be there by 9:30. We'll meet you inside. After they left, I spent the day in that dingy motel room, waiting. I dozed fitfully, jerking awake at every sound, convinced Beatrice and Tom had found me. Frank arrived at 7 in the evening, and I nearly wept when I opened the door to his familiar face. You look terrible, he said, pulling me into a hug. I feel terrible. Well, tomorrow we make them feel worse. He set down his overnight bag. I brought someone with me. He's parking the car. Who? Before Frank could answer, there was another knock. I opened the door to find a man in his 40s, professional-looking, carrying a leather bag. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm Dr. Alan Foster. I'm a neuropsychologist. Your brother asked me to evaluate you. Why would I need... Because, Frank said gently, if we're going to fight a claim that you're incompetent, we need evidence that you're not. Dr. Foster specializes in cognitive assessments. He can provide expert testimony tomorrow. For the next 2 hours, Dr. Foster put me through a battery of tests, memory exercises, problem-solving tasks, questions about current events. It was exhausting. When he finally closed his notebook, he smiled. Mrs. Mitchell, you scored in the superior range for your age group. Your memory is excellent, your reasoning skills are sharp, and you show no signs of cognitive decline whatsoever. Can you testify to that tomorrow? I can and I will. What your children are doing. It's elder abuse. Financial exploitation. I see it too often, and I'm happy to help stop it. That night, I barely slept. Frank stayed awake too, sitting in the chair by the window, watching the parking lot. What if they win? I asked into the darkness. What if the judge believes them? They won't win. We have evidence, testimony, witnesses. We have the truth. The truth didn't help James's other daughter for 30 years. Different situation. Emma was hidden because James was a coward. You're being hidden because your children are thieves. The law tends to notice the difference. The next morning, I dressed in the best clothes I had, the same outfit I'd worn to James's funeral 8 years ago. Navy dress, pearl earrings, sensible shoes. I looked at myself in the motel mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked older, harder, sadder, but also stronger. Frank drove me to the courthouse. We were early, but Emma and Karen were already there, along with Dr. Foster and another man I didn't recognize. Margaret, Karen said, this is Martin Reeves, your family attorney. I contacted him last night. Martin looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Mitchell, I owe you an apology. When Beatrice came to my office with that permission slip, you couldn't have known. But Martin, I need you to testify about that. About the forged signature. I will. And I've brought the original document. It's clearly not your handwriting. At 9:45, Beatrice and Tom arrived with their attorney, a sharp-faced woman named Gloria Henderson. Beatrice saw me and her face went white. Mom, thank God you're safe. We've been so worried. Don't, I said quietly. Don't pretend anymore. Mrs. Mitchell, Gloria interjected. My clients have been frantic. You disappeared in the middle of the night, stole a vehicle. I borrowed a farm truck from my own property. Property that belongs to the trust, of which you are no longer the owner. We'll see about that. The bailiff called us into the courtroom. Judge Helen Rapp, no relation to Karen, was a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "This is an unusual situation," she said, reviewing the files in front of her. "We have several related matters consolidated before this court today. An estate claim by Ms. Sue Bradley, a counterclaim regarding a trust document, and emergency motions regarding competency and conservatorship. Let's start with the estate claim. Ms. Rapp, you represent Ms. Bradley?" "I do, Your Honor." Karen stood. "We're filing a revised petition today that significantly reduces our claim." She explained Emma's new position, claiming only the 3 properties James had explicitly promised, returning the others to me. "And why the change?" Judge Rapp asked. "Because we've learned that the original, larger claim was encouraged by Mrs. Mitchell's own children as part of a scheme to defraud their mother." Beatrice shot to her feet. "That's absurd." "Sit down," Judge Rapp said sharply. "You'll have your turn. Continue, Ms. Rapp." Karen presented Emma's testimony, the signed statement Beatrice had made promising to help Emma in exchange for splitting the proceeds, the emails, the timeline of contacts. Then it was my turn to testify. I walked to the witness stand with my head high and my hands steady. I swore to tell the truth. And then I told everything. I told about finding the hidden compartment, the letters, the birth certificate. I told about Beatrice's text messages to Kenneth, about the trust papers they'd pressured me to sign, about the doctor they'd brought to my house. I told about being locked in my room, about climbing out the window because I was afraid. "Afraid of your own children?" Judge Rapp asked. "Afraid of what they were willing to do for money." Gloria Henderson cross-examined me aggressively. "Mrs. Mitchell, isn't it true that you've been experiencing memory problems?" "No. Your children say you left the stove on multiple times." "I never left the stove on." "They lied. You forgot to buy groceries even though you claimed you were going to the store." "I didn't forget. I went somewhere else instead." "Where?" I looked at Beatrice. "I went to meet Sue Bradley, my husband's daughter, my children's half-sister." The courtroom erupted. Judge Rapp banged her gavel. "Mrs. Mitchell," Gloria said, "you climbed out a second-story window in the middle of the night. Is that the action of a person thinking clearly?" "It's the action of a person who was being held prisoner." Dr. Foster testified next, presenting his evaluation results. Then Martin Reeves testified about the forged permission slip. Then Frank, speaking as both my brother and as a retired judge, testified about the suspicious timing of everything, the trust, the competency concerns, the attempt to isolate me. Finally, Sue Bradley took the stand. "I didn't want to hurt Margaret," she said. "I just wanted what my father promised me. But when Beatrice and Tom contacted me, offering to help me take everything in exchange for half the proceeds, I realized this wasn't about my father's promises. It was about greed." "Why didn't you accept their offer?" Judge Rapp asked. "Because Margaret didn't deserve to be destroyed. She's innocent in all of this. She was betrayed by my father just like my mother was. I couldn't be part of hurting her more." Judge Rapp took a brief recess. When she returned, her expression was grim. "I've reviewed all the evidence and testimony. This is one of the most disturbing cases of financial elder abuse I've seen in 20 years on the bench." She looked at Beatrice and Tom. "You exploited your mother's trust, forged her signature, attempted to have her falsely declared incompetent, and conspired to steal her property. The trust document you created is hereby voided. It was signed under duress and false pretenses." "Your Honor," Gloria began. "I'm not finished. Ms. Bradley's revised petition is approved. She is entitled to the 3 properties specified in her father's letter. The remaining properties revert to Mrs. Mitchell as rightful heir. Additionally, I'm ordering both Beatrice Mitchell and Thomas Mitchell to surrender any documents, keys, and property belonging to their mother immediately." Beatrice was crying. Tom sat stone-faced. "Your Honor," Karen said, "we'd also like to request a restraining order. Mrs. Mitchell fears for her safety." "Granted. Beatrice and Thomas Mitchell are prohibited from contacting their mother." or coming within 500 feet of her person or property for a period of 1 year. If they violate this order, they'll face criminal charges. Judge Rapp looked at me. Mrs. Mitchell, I'm truly sorry for what you've endured. Your children should be ashamed of themselves. They should be, I said quietly. But I don't think they are. As we filed out of the courtroom, Beatrice tried to approach me. A bailiff stepped between us, reminding her of the restraining order. Mom, she called over his shoulder. You don't understand. We were trying to help you. We were trying to protect you from her. She pointed at Emma. The only people I needed protection from, I said, were the two of you. I walked away without looking back. 3 months later, I stood in my kitchen making coffee as the morning sun streamed through the windows I'd just had cleaned. The house felt different now. Lighter somehow, despite everything that had happened. Or maybe it was me who felt lighter. The farm was fully mine again. The trust documents destroyed, the reverse mortgage paid off with money from the sale of 2 properties James had hidden in Colorado and Maine. I'd kept the Florida property, a small condo I planned to visit this winter. The rest had gone to settling James's debts and securing my future. I was, for the first time in my 64 years, truly independent. Emma arrived at 9, as she had every Saturday for the past 2 months. She'd moved to South Carolina after the hearing, taking a position with a Charleston firm that didn't carry the weight of her mother's legacy. Morning, Margaret, she called, letting herself in through the back door. Coffee's ready. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Beatrice and Tom had tried to manipulate me into signing away my life. Now it held crossword puzzles, gardening magazines, and 2 mugs of coffee shared with a woman I was slowly learning to know. How's the property search going? Emma asked. I've narrowed it down to 3 possibilities. Want to look at them with me this afternoon? She smiled. I'd love to. I was selling the farm. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. The memories here, both the true ones and the false ones, weighed too heavily. I'd found a smaller property 20 miles away. Manageable size, beautiful views, and no ghosts. Have you heard from them? Emma asked carefully. She never said their names. Beatrice and Tom had become them in our conversations, as if speaking their names might summon them back into my life. Tom sent another letter through his attorney, apologizing, asking for forgiveness, suggesting we talk like adults. What did you do with it? What I did with the other 3. Sent it back unopened. The restraining order had 6 more months to run, but even after it expired, I had no intention of seeing my children. They'd shown me who they really were, and I believed them. The hardest part wasn't the anger. Anger I could handle. It was the grief. Mourning the children I'd thought I had while confronting the reality of the ones I'd raised. Where had I gone wrong? Had I been too trusting, too giving? Had James's betrayal taught them that manipulation was acceptable? I didn't have answers. Maybe I never would. Beatrice's divorce from Kenneth is final, Emma said, scrolling through her phone. It was in the county records this morning. They turned on each other fast enough. Money does that to people. After the hearing, Kenneth had tried to claim innocence, saying Beatrice had manipulated him. Beatrice had countered by releasing their text messages showing his full involvement. Their divorce had become a public spectacle of accusation and counter-accusation. I felt nothing watching them destroy each other. Not satisfaction, not sadness. Just a distant sense of inevitability. Frank called yesterday, I said, changing the subject. He wants to visit next month. That's wonderful. I'd like to meet him properly. He'd like that too. He thinks you're... I paused, choosing words carefully. A good person who got caught in an impossible situation. I think the same about you. We drank our coffee in comfortable silence. 3 months ago, I couldn't have imagined this. Sitting peacefully with my late husband's illegitimate daughter, planning our days, sharing our lives. But grief and betrayal had a way of reshaping what family meant. Emma wasn't responsible for her father's choices. Neither was I. We were both casualties of James's cowardice, and we'd found an unexpected alliance in our shared loss. The Charleston property closes next week, Emma said. I've decided to keep it, maybe renovate it, turn it into something new. Your mother would be proud. I hope so. She looked out the window at the fields beyond. I wish she could have known you. Really known you, not just as the wife who stood in the way. Would it have made a difference? Maybe. Or maybe it would have made it harder. It's easier to be the other woman when you can imagine the wife as cold, uncaring. You're neither of those things. I was naive. No, you were trusting. There's a difference. Old Jack appeared outside, working on the fence line. He waved, and I waved back. He'd been the first person I'd told about the hearing, expecting judgment. Instead, he'd said, "About time someone stood up to those kids. They've been circling like vultures since your husband passed." Everyone had seen it except me. Or maybe I'd seen it and refused to believe. Love made you blind to things you didn't want to see. Around noon, Martin Reeves stopped by with papers for me to sign. The final documents transferring the Colorado property to its new owners. He'd been apologetic for weeks after the hearing, offering to reduce his fees, checking on me constantly. "Martin, I've told you," I said as he spread the papers on the table. "You made a mistake, but you testified truthfully when it mattered. I don't hold grudges against people who do the right thing eventually. Still," he shook his head, "I should have known better. Should have called to verify." Beatrice was convincing. She always has been. After he left, Emma and I drove to look at properties. The first was too remote, the second too expensive. But the third, a 50-acre farm with a modest house, a barn in good repair, and a creek running through the back 40, felt right the moment we pulled up the driveway. "This is it," I said. "You sure? You haven't even seen inside." "I'm sure." The house was small but well-maintained. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen that opened to the living room, wide windows that looked out over rolling fields. The owner, a widow like me, had moved to be closer to her daughter in Atlanta. "It needs someone who'll love it," she said, showing us around. "Someone who understands what it means to build a life on land." "I understand," I said. We shook hands on the porch, agreeing to terms without lawyers or negotiation. Sometimes you just knew when something was right. On the drive back, Emma was quiet. Finally, she said, "Margaret, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you hate my father? For what he did to you?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. "No," I said finally. "I'm angry, disappointed, betrayed. But hate? That takes too much energy. And I've wasted enough years on James's lies. He made his choices. He lived with the consequences. Now I'm making mine. What about Beatrice and Tom? Do you hate them?" "That's harder." I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "They're my children. I loved them before they could speak, before they could hurt me. That kind of love doesn't just disappear. But I also can't have them in my life. They showed me they'd sacrifice me for money without hesitation. I have to accept that and protect myself. Do you think they'll ever understand what they did wrong? I don't know. Tom sent a letter last month saying they were just trying to protect their inheritance. Not apologizing, justifying. Beatrice's letters are worse. She still insists she was helping me, that I'm ungrateful." I shook my head. "They can't see their own actions clearly. Maybe they never will. That must hurt." Every single day. When we got back to the farm, there was a car in the driveway I didn't recognize. A woman in her 30s stood on the porch looking nervous. "Can I help you?" I asked, getting out of the truck. "Mrs. Mitchell? I'm Jennifer Hartley. I'm a reporter with the Charleston Post. I wanted to talk to you about your case. It's gained a lot of attention online. The way you stood up to your children, fought back against elder abuse. People want to hear your story." "No. I understand you're private, but this could help other people in similar situations. Your experience could exploit my family's dysfunction for clicks and ad revenue," I said. "No, thank you. Mrs. Mitchell, please. Just a few questions." Emma stepped forward. She said no. "You need to leave." Jennifer looked between us, clearly trying to figure out our relationship. "Are you Sue Bradley, the illegitimate daughter?" "I'm Sue Bradley, James Mitchell's daughter. There's nothing illegitimate about me. And you're trespassing. Leave now or we call the sheriff." After Jennifer's car disappeared down the driveway, Emma turned to me. "Sorry if I overstepped." "You didn't. Thank you." I squeezed her hand. "For everything." That evening, I sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The same porch where James and I had sat thousands of times, planning our future, talking about our children, building what I'd thought was an honest life. Everything I'd believed about my marriage had been a lie, but that didn't mean everything had been false. James had loved me in his way, a limited, selfish way, but real nonetheless. Our children had been wanted. Our years together had held genuine moments of joy. The betrayal didn't erase those memories. It just changed how I understood them. My phone rang. "Frank, how's the farm hunting?" he asked. "Found the perfect place. I'll send you pictures." "That's my girl. And Maggie? I've been thinking about Thanksgiving. Why don't you and Emma fly out to Montana? Spend it with me and Christine." Christine was Frank's wife, a kind woman I'd met only a handful of times. The invitation made my throat tight. "We'd love that." "Good. And Maggie? I'm proud of you. What you did, standing up to Beatrice and Tom, fighting for yourself, that took real courage." I was terrified the entire time. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. You've always been stronger than you knew. After we hung up, I sat for a while longer as darkness fell. Crickets chirped in the grass. A barn owl called from somewhere in the fields. The sounds of a life continuing, regardless of human drama. I thought about Beatrice and Tom, probably sitting in their separate homes, nursing their grievances, convinced they were the victims. I thought about James, wherever the dead go, carrying the weight of his choices. I thought about Catherine Bradley, who'd loved a man who could never fully love her back, and who'd raised Emma to be stronger than the situation that created her. And I thought about myself, Maggie Mitchell, 64 years old, starting over. The old Maggie would have been terrified, would have clung to the familiar even when it hurt, would have forgiven Beatrice and Tom because that's what mothers were supposed to do. But the woman sitting on this porch wasn't that person anymore. I'd climbed out a window to save myself. I'd faced my children in court and told the truth. I'd made an ally out of a woman who should have been my enemy. I'd learned that blood didn't always mean family, and family didn't always mean blood. Most importantly, I'd learned that starting over at 64 wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. The next morning, I called the widow in Atlanta and made an offer on her farm. She accepted immediately. "When do you want to take possession?" she asked. "As soon as possible. I'm ready for something new." New is good. New is hopeful. I spent the next weeks packing, sorting through 40 years of accumulated life. I kept very little. Some photographs from when the children were young. James's wedding ring. The letters Emma's mother had written because they were part of the truth now. Everything else I sold or donated. The furniture where Beatrice and Tom had sat planning my downfall. The dishes from family dinners that had masked their greed. The decorations James had bought while hiding his second life. I kept only what I wanted to carry forward. Emma helped me pack. Frank flew out for a week to help with the heavy lifting. Martin Reeves handled the legal paperwork. Old Jack agreed to stay on with the new owners, who planned to continue farming the land. On my last day at the farm, I walked through the empty rooms one final time. The floors echoed with my footsteps. Sunlight streamed through bare windows. The hidden compartment behind the bookshelf stood open and empty, its secrets finally told. I didn't cry. I'd done my crying. Instead, I locked the door, handed the keys to Martin, and climbed into Emma's car. "Ready?" she asked. More than ready. The new farm was perfect. Smaller, yes, quieter, but mine in a way the old place had never been. Emma stayed for the first week, helping me unpack, hanging curtains, planting a small garden that would bloom next spring. "What will you do with all this space?" she asked, looking at the empty second bedroom. "I don't know yet. Maybe a craft room. Maybe a guest room for when Frank visits. Maybe nothing. Maybe I'll just enjoy having space that's mine and nobody else's." That sounds perfect. The day Emma left to drive back to Charleston, I walked her to her car. She hugged me tight, and I hugged her back. "Thank you," I said, "for being honest, for choosing the harder right over the easier wrong. Thank you for giving me a chance, for seeing me as a person, not just a complication. You're my stepdaughter. Your family." She smiled through tears. I'll call you when I get home. You better. I watched her drive away, then turned to look at my new home. The sun was setting behind it, casting long shadows across the fields. In the distance, I could hear the creek bubbling over rocks, a constant gentle sound that would become as familiar as breathing. This was my second act, my fresh start, my chance to build a life based on truth instead of illusion. I was 64 years old. My husband had betrayed me. My children had tried to destroy me. I'd lost almost everything I'd thought defined my life. And somehow, standing in the doorway of my new home, I'd never felt more free. Age, I'd learned, wasn't about decline. It was about accumulated wisdom, about knowing your own strength, about refusing to be diminished by people who should have loved you better. I'd spent 40 years being the woman James wanted me to be, trusting, unquestioning, manageable. I'd spent 20 more being the mother Beatrice and Tom needed me to be, generous, supportive, easy to manipulate. Now I was going to spend however many years I had left being exactly who I was, Maggie Mitchell, survivor, fighter, woman who climbed out a window at 64 because staying put meant losing herself. I stepped inside my new home and closed the door on the past. The future, uncertain but mine, stretched out before me like those fields in the fading light, full of possibility, full of promise, full of hope. And this time, I was writing my own story. Now tell me, what would you have done if you were in my place? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out the video on your screen right now. I'm sure it will surprise you.